The movie opens up as a group of Allied soldiers are being herded into an underground bunker by a bunch of armed Nazis. They are forced to walk along a long corridor while their German captors walk side by side with their guns drawn. The group is about to approach a door when suddenly one of the captured Allied soldiers sees a chance to escape. He pushes the Nazi soldier who is walking alongside him and snatches the enemy's weapon. Unfortunately, the door opens almost immediately and several more armed German soldiers come through it. They quickly open fire, mowing down everyone regardless of which side they are on. When the dust settles down, there is only one person standing: the Allied soldier who had snatched the gun. He, however, is about to suffer a fate worse than being dead. Shortly afterwards, the captured soldier is taken to the other side of the door, which opens into some sort of a lab. He is laid down on a steel-cold operating table and his hands are tied. The Nazis then inject him with some sort of a mixture of blood and black gooey liquid. The captured soldier stops resisting and drops dead as soon as the liquid reaches his veins. Then suddenly, he comes back alive as a zombie with eyes as white as snow. We then get a bit of a backstory about what is happening here. In 1939, along the Russian border with Finland, Nazi Germany began secret anti-death experiments on captured Soviet soldiers. These tests are abandoned 2 years later and the test subjects are piled into mass graves and buried. Meanwhile, in 1941, a small elite unit of American soldiers is dispatched to assist a Finnish task force in their fight against the Russians. Their mission order is vague to most of the unit except for Captain Niemi, the commanding officer. They are only told that they must destroy some Russian bunkers along the Soviet-Finnish border. The scene changes to present day in 1941, as this elite squad inches closer to their target. The American faction is under the command of Captain Martin Stone, while the commanding officer of the entire squad is Finnish soldier, Captain Niemi. They soon reach a hut that is rather creepily built near a graveyard. One of the Finnish soldiers, named Merrill, goes inside and finds an old man writing on a bunch of papers. The soldier's eyes fall on several metallic, hexagonal structures on a nearby table. He then engages the old man in conversation and asks the old man for a cigarette. While the latter is distracted, the soldier steals one of these hexagonal structures and keeps it in his bag. Shortly afterwards, the soldier bids farewell to the old man. He is about to leave the hut when suddenly the latter's pet dog bites his hand. The soldier curses at the animal but doesn't make a big deal out of it. Unbeknownst to him, the old man is a secret Nazi scientist who was part of the anti-dying experiments. The nearby graveyard is full of bodies of test subjects of those inhumane procedures. The pet dog had only recently chewed on the hand of a corpse from the graveyard. Sometime later, the elite squad stops to set up camp for the night. They are barely 2 kilometers away from their target, the secret Soviet bunkers. Captain Martin pulls Niemi aside and has a conversation about the purpose of their mission. However, the latter only gives vague answers and says the whole task will be over by dawn. Niemi then tells his soldiers that they will raid the bunkers early next morning. Suddenly, Merrill, who looks extremely sick, begins to walk forward absent-mindedly. The others watch on as the soldier climbs up a small hillock and slowly turns around. Everyone is trying to figure out what on earth he is doing when suddenly all hell breaks loose. Turns out, the Soviets had set up a defensive position only a few hundred meters ahead. They were made aware of the elite squad's position thanks to Merrill standing on a hillock. A fierce gunfight ensues and there are heavy casualties on both sides. Eventually, the elite squad is forced to fall back, much to the irritation of Captain Niemi. That night, the group sets up a defensive position not far off from the spot where the skirmish happened. The opinions are divided as some want to inform the headquarters while others want to stay and fight. Niemi, who wants to do the latter, orders the soldiers to be vigilant. Suddenly, they hear heavy footsteps approaching towards their position. Niemi, Martin, and Finnish Lieutenant Laakso draw their rifles, ready to shoot. They soon see a single soldier nearby but cannot decipher whether he is a friendly or an enemy. Niemi, nonetheless, orders to shoot and the soldier is splattered with bullets. Following this, Laakso is ordered to go check the dead body while others cover for him. The lieutenant soon reaches the corpse only to come to a horrifying realization. The dead soldier is none other than their own Merrill, who had been hit with several bullets only a few hours ago. Before Laakso can make sense of what's going on, Merrill seemingly rises back from the dead once more. His eyes are white as snow, indicating that he has turned into a zombie. He then lunges at Laakso and while doing so, the hexagonal metallic structure falls from his bag. The lieutenant is now locked in a wrestling for life and death match with the zombie. He quickly grabs the hexagonal structure from nearby and begins to hit Merrill with it. Fortunately for the lieutenant, Niemi soon arrives at the spot and shoots the zombie in the head. Just as things look to have calmed down for the time being, the elite squad gets ambushed. A number of zombies, who had been hiding in nearby trees, leap into action. These creatures begin to tear into and devour whatever human being they can get their hands on. Several members of the elite squad are killed, further depleting their total number. The handful of survivors are forced to run away in search of cover. We see that the remaining group now includes Martin, Nimi, Lieutenant Loxo, and an inexperienced American cameraman Smithwell Jr. They have nowhere else to go, so they take a gamble and flee into the nearby Soviet bunkers. Their respite doesn't last long, as there seems to be a battle ongoing in the trenches. They ready their weapons, waiting for the gunfighting to reach them anytime soon. However, they only come across a lone Russian soldier named Kolya who seems to be fleeing for his life. He immediately puts down his rifle and begs them not to shoot. Niemi wants to kill him on the spot while the rest hesitate for a moment. Kolya then blurts out that he can help them by leading them to a house. Martin, realizing that the zombies will be following them into the bunker, decides to trust the Russian. An extremely enraged Niemi has no option but to agree, and they soon run away. After running as fast as they can for a while, Kolya leads the survivors to a dilapidated hut. The Russian is the only one who doesn't have any weapons and is currently treated like a prisoner. The others quickly man the windows with their rifles drawn. Laakso then asks the Russian about the creatures following them, but the latter is just as confused. On the other hand, Martin confronts Niemi since he was the only one who had the complete intel about the mission. The Finnish captain, however, rudely declines to say anything. This causes an intense friction between him and Martin, who is growing increasingly suspicious. Suddenly, a zombie rushes towards the hut and forces its way in through a window. It jumps on Niemi's back and bites into the Finn's neck before anyone can react. Seconds later, several zombies begin pouring towards the hut and the survivors open fire. Kolya, who has no weapons, fights the zombies who have entered the hut with his bare hands. Martin, on the other hand, realizes that the zombies only die if they are shot in the head. He passes on the information to the others, and after an intense battle, things calm down. Following this, the group splits up and the two Finnish soldiers, Niemi and Laakso, head to the second floor of the hut. The others then guard the ground floor, but it is obvious that Smithwell Jr. is scared out of his mind. Upstairs, the Finnish soldiers are doing a thorough checkup of the place. Everything looks normal until two zombies climb the roof and jump inside the top floor. The sound of heavy gunfire reaches the ground floor, where Kolya decides to help. He approaches Martin and says that there is a car hidden nearby. The two quickly head outside and indeed find an old car hidden in a nearby garage. Back on the second floor, the two Finnish soldiers finally manage to overcome the zombie attack. They then make their way to the ground floor, only to find Smithwell Jr. cowering nearby. The amateur cameraman tells them that the others have gone to look for a car. However, Niemi, who had been bitten by a zombie not long ago, begins to act weird. He walks away from the others and suddenly collapses to the ground. As Laakso and Smithwell Jr. catch their breath and wait for the others to come back, something horrifying happens. Niemi comes back to life as a formidable zombie. He jumps on Laakso and tries to bite the latter on the neck. Smithwell Jr., who is watching this unfold, is so scared that he can barely move. Eventually, seeing his colleague on the brink of death spurs him into action. He gathers enough courage and stabs zombie Niemi with his knife. After an intense struggle, Laakso finally manages to subdue the zombie and free himself. Outside in the garage, things look equally grim for Martin and Kallio. The two are trying to start the car when suddenly several zombies jump on the vehicle. The American watches on as Kallio fights all three of the creatures with his bare hands. Back inside, Laakso and Smithwell Jr. try to get some rest. The Finnish soldier, still trying to catch his breath, thanks the cameraman for the help. This is when zombie Niemi rises one more time and immediately attacks Smithwell Jr. Unfortunately, by the time Laakso shoots the zombie, it is too late. The amateur cameraman succumbs to his injuries and dies on the spot. Niemi also drops to the floor, motionless for the time being. Things go from bad to worse as several zombies now start to rush towards the hut. Laakso rushes outside and manages to get into the car just in the nick of time. Martin then gets the car to start, and the surviving trio barely escape by the skin of their teeth. Unbeknownst to them, zombie Niemi wakes up in the hut and scans the area for potential victims. Following this, the three survivors, Martin, Kallio and Laakso, drive into the forest. They make slow progress as the car is extremely old and comes to an abrupt halt several times. As they are trying to get the junk to run, Kallio notices a strange black, gooey substance on Laakso's coat. It is blood from one of the zombies and seems to be growing like some sort of a parasite. Laakso quickly chucks his coat out of the window, but in doing something drops from its pocket onto the car's floor. Curious, Kallio grabs the object, which is the hexagonal metallic structure that Laakso had picked up earlier. Right at this moment, zombie Niemi appears on the spot as if he was summoned by the hexagon. He tries to pull Kalyo right out of the window, but the Russian somehow beats off the zombie. Fortunately for him, Martin manages to get the car started and they run away from the spot. After driving around aimlessly for a while, the survivors arrive at a nearby village. Kalyo seems to know this place and asks Martin to take shelter in one of the houses. The whole village seems to be destroyed and there is no sign of life anywhere. Thus, the survivors find a secure-looking cabin and quickly enter inside. They secure the door and then sit down to discuss what to do next. The men argue about whether to confront the supernatural threat or leave it behind. Suddenly, their conversation is interrupted when they hear a thudding noise from nearby. They draw their guns and check the adjacent room only to come across a young Finnish girl named Dasha. In a moment of sheer coincidence, this beautiful lady happens to be Kolya's ex-girlfriend. It is revealed that the Kolya lives a few miles away from this village, across the border on the Russian side. He was forced to break up with Dasha once Russia and Finland became enemies during the Second World War. Sometime later, Kolya tells the others that he can lead them to a nearby German bunker. He reveals that the bunker has a satellite radio which they can use to get backup. Laakso is initially against the idea, but Martin points out that they have nowhere else to go. Thus, the four proceed towards the bunker under the direction of Kolya. After a short ride on the old car, the group eventually reaches the German bunker. There are dead bodies everywhere in the outer yard and the whole place looks like it saw fierce fighting not long ago. They disembark from the car and are about to enter the facility when several zombies appear from nearby. Laakso shoots as many as he can as the others open the main gate and enter inside. Once they are inside the facility, they find it full of several interconnected tunnels. There are dead bodies everywhere, but to their relief they also find several weapons and torches. Finally, after making the whole journey without any weapon, Kolya gets a rifle. As the men are busy gathering ammunition and looking around the tunnels, something nabs Dasha from behind. It takes them several long minutes to realize that the girl has vanished right under their nose. This forces them to split up once more as Kolya goes to find his love all on his own. Unfortunately, he soon comes across her in a nearby tunnel. Kolya finds Dasha mortally wounded, having to shoot her in the head to prevent her from turning. Laakso and Stone find the living remnants of the German garrison. As Stone stays behind to cover Laakso, the Finn is reunited with Kolya and the two find the radio room, where they call headquarters to call in an airstrike to take the bunker out for good. Suddenly, Niemi appears again at the bunker and engages in a fistfight with Stone, while the radio room is overrun by zombies and Laakso and Kolya are forced to flee. As they near the exit to the surface, Kolya is grabbed by a zombie and falls to his death, with Laakso forced to leave him as he races topside to set the signal flares for the incoming fighter bombers. Narrowly escaping the bombs, Laakso meets up with Stone again as they surrender to the incoming Russian battalion which has been called to investigate the site, knowing their job is done.